Thank you very much for the introduction. CISG, Concussion in Sport Group. We created that group around 2000 and had the first meeting 2002 in Vienna, followed by a meeting in Prague, Zurich, and finally in Berlin. Basically, it's an interdisciplinary group, consists of experts in neurology, neurosciences, neurophysiology, neuropsychology, and of course, sport. And the major organization got together, the International Olympic Committee, the FIFA, the World Rugby, International Ice Hockey Federation, and Equestrian International Federation, those whose athletes are prone to this event, to concussion. So today I will speak what we can do, what we need, and how can we win the battle against occurring of concussion. Science needs time to produce sound results, which can't be ignored. We are working on that since close to 2 decades, and there are still many unanswered questions. So in football, we monitor every injury occurring during the World Cups, and basically we have data on more than 60 big FIFA competitions. But only in the World Cups, the Men World Cup since 1998, we have registered 97 concussions, which means 1 concussion every 20th game, or 1.65 concussions per 1,000 playing hours. This is the standard procedure. We calculate the injury per 1,000 playing hours. I show you the one which struck me at my first mission during the World Cup 1994. It's a Brazilian player who makes this event with elbow to head. And now watch that. This is clear sign of concussion, of a brain damage. Immediate reaction, it's like convulsion movements. Involuntary movement of the arm, of the head, you know this is a concussion. You have to interrupt the game, you have to go to the field and take care for this player. This player got a severe injury. There was a skull fracture of the temporal bone on the left side, and he has sustained a subdural hematoma. I asked the FIFA executive, how come it is not punished? The Brazilian player was not punished. He continued to play, and the other had a really severe injury. So the elbow to head, it struck me from the very beginning. And when I saw it again, that it's happening during the World Cup 1998 in France, then we took the action and we let the science to let us a little bit more. So we went into the laboratory, and we are using the standard techniques of biomechanics, of the modern technology. We simulated the different events, like heading the ball with using all kinds of tracking records with high-speed camera, the elbow to head, and we have also measured the impact of the ball on the head, which you see calculating the different vectors of the issues. We have seen that this elbow to head is quite a severe impact to the skull and of course to the brain, which can cause damage. And many of those incidents of the concussions in football, by looking at the video analysis, are attributed to those events. So we propose, or I proposed, against the great resistance of the FIFA administration, to punish this event by red card. And I got a strong support of the 2 major former professional football players, Sir Bobby Charlton, you probably know, from England, and Pelé from Brazil, because they knew this is a severe incident, and in the 50s, 60s and 70s the players went to the ball with the arms close to the body. And later on, they started to use the elbow. So when we introduced the red card, the incidence of the concussion and the skull injuries went significantly down. So many of those incidents, the most common incidents leading to concussion is the head-to-head collision. We don't know how to deal with that one. The most severe is knee to the head, shoulder to head. This is all from the World Cup. That's Kramer from the German team. Head to the ground. So we have to be prepared for that. One of the most severe is the knee to the head. And here I appeal to you. So obvious this Uruguayan player lost consciousness, is unconscious. No doubt there is an impact on the brain. The doctor chose to replace, but the players say no, no. And he decided by himself with the coach that he's able to play. This is absolutely wrong. If you diagnose or if you have a suspicion of concussion, then you have to take the player out of the game. So I made, as a chief medical officer, again the initiative to the executive board to take the consequence, because it doesn't look good on the TV and it is bad for the player. So we established the new rule that the doctor, the responsible team physician, can run to the pitch, tell the referee to interrupt the game for up to 3 minutes to make the primer assessment on the pitch to see if there is a suspicion of the concussion, and if he decides, it's his sole decision without interference of the coach or of the trainer to take the player out. And I recommend, if you are in doubts, take the player out, whether it is a male, female, or adolescent. And then, if you have time, you do the entire screening by using the sports concussion assessment tool number 5, which I come to this later. I don't want to go into the details, but I recommend you to get the information for those supplements of the British Journal of Sports Medicine on the results of the last consensus meeting 2016 in Berlin, from which I will share some of the main consensus statements. And I am happy that you are taking the pictures of this, because you can easily identify that, and the papers are open access, so you don't pay anything. You can download them and read. So the aim of the last consensus meeting was to create a simple, clear message and tools that will equip practitioners, you who are responsible for the teams and you are on the sideline, to diagnose and manage concussion in sport. So we created the 11 R's. I am kind of known that I use this number 11 as a synonym for prevention in medicine. So it was coincidence that we also create the 11 R's for concussion management. And I will go one by one. The concussion recognition tool. And I recommend the Thai Football Association to translate those into the language. It's for free. We have absolutely no royalties. I always went for the philosophy, no money must be involved in the research and in the transitional research in medicine. So you can download, you can translate. We give you the approval. The Concussion in Sport group will give you the approval if the translation is done properly. So number one, the recognition. That can be used by laymen, by the parents, by non-medical personnel, just that you recognize the concussion and you remove the player from the pitch. For the doctors, paramedics, and medical personnel, we have created this SCAT-5, Sports Concussion Assessment Tool. And it's also in this supplement, so you can download and you can use it. With adaptation for children, because children are reacting differently than the adults. When a concussion is suspected, the athlete, whatever sports you have, should be removed from the sporting environment, and a complex multimodal assessment should be done. And the SCAT, even though you are orthopedic surgeons, the SCAT will guide you what you need to do. You don't need a special treatment. It is a self-explanatory. This tool is self-explanatory, and you will learn to use it very, very fast. If you are not sure, then re-evaluate and call a specialist, neuropsychologist, neurologist, or somebody who is experienced in the concussion in sport. Of course, Glasgow Coma Scale will indicate a severe brain injury, concussion, hemorrhage, or that kind of injuries. And don't forget, if you have dead blows to the head, you can have also an injury of the cervical spine. So any concussion, in particular if the athlete is lost consciousness, you have to suspect an injury to the cervical spine. So if we have head and neck injury, we think primarily on brain, but there is also the inner ear. There is a labyrinth. You can have a contusion or disturbance of the vestibular apparatus with labyrinth, and that can cause the same symptoms: headache, dizziness, nausea, even vomiting. So you have to differentiate whether it is the brain or the vestibular system. And also differentiate whether it could be an injury to the cervical spine. And again, cervical spine can cause the same symptoms: neck pain, headache, dizziness, even nausea. So we have not, those symptoms are very similar. So we have to differentiate brain, vestibular, and cervical. The concussion is medical decision based upon clinical judgment. You doctors, you team physicians make the diagnosis, and you also decide if the player will be allowed to return to play or taken out and have rest minimum at 24 to 48 hours before gradually and progressively become more active, while always staying below the physical symptoms and signs. We rehabilitate the cervical spine, the peripheral vestibular system, and we closely monitor the results of the rehabilitation, which will help us to decide when the player return to play. And basically this is one of the most important slides of my presentation. Return to play. 24 hours to 48 hours, no activity. Then you introduce light physical activity. If you have no symptoms, then you can go after 24 hours to the next step, to sport-specific exercises, whether it is rugby, football, horseback riding, or whatever. If you have no symptoms or signs, then you can go to the non-contact training drills. Again, sports-specific. If you have a symptoms induced by these training drills, you go back again one day and have just light exercises. The next is routine training with also contact, and finally return to play. So the minimum time after concussion is 7 days, mostly somewhere between 7 to 10 days. The CTE, the encephalopathy, the cerebral traumatic encephalopathy is discussed. A cause and effect has not been demonstrated yet between the CTE and sport-related concussion. We have some reports in the literature, but the papers, even though published in respected journals, they have some limitations, to put it politely, not to use the word flaws. So we have to still continue with analysis of brain banks, and still the reports are coming from the same research group. They have been not replicated by others. So we do not know. Unless it is proved otherwise, we have to be careful, because it might be proven that there is a relationship. But we don't know yet the long term. So the key messages from my talk: recognize and remove, use this concussion recognition tool, or the SCAT for you doctors. The children are reacting differently. They need more time for recovery. For children, it's not only a return to play, but also return to school, to the regular schooling activities. And also recognize and appreciate other possible injuries, such as whiplash and injury to the vestibular apparatus. Concussion is treatable injury. It can return to complete recovery. And if you have a delay symptoms, please contact the specialists who know. Follow the 11 R's. I think that in future, particularly in the top competition, we should allow video replay for the doctors to have it on the bench to analyze the injury biomechanics. The manager and the coach has to understand what's behind it. And we have to empower again the medical profession in that very important issues in the sport. We have published this consensus statement on concussion in sport in the British Journal. It's in the leading article in this supplement, so I recommend you to read this in details, and you should be interested. We are already in process of preparing the next concussion consensus meeting in Paris. This will be in October 2020, and I hope that we will have a representation from your country, that your leading people in the sport community will participate actively in this meeting. The participants number is limited to 400. We don't want to have a big meeting. We want to have only people who understand or who can make the major impact in understanding the concussion in the different countries around the world. So with this, I thank you for your attention. That was the last presentation within this Congress. Thank you very much for your kind invitation.